front pages, the big story about Oxfam and the sex workers and so forth, broken by the Times during the week very successfully. It's followed up by the Sunday Times in a major way today. The Mail on Sunday has got the same sort of story about Jo Cox's former husband. We'll be talking about that later on. The Observer, again, Oxfam faces fresh claims over its staff paying for sex, and as a major story about private water payouts are a public scandal, says Labour, which is going to renationalise the water industry if it comes back to power. The Sunday Telegraph there has got a story from the other side of the Brexit debate. Barnier's aggression, he's been very, very aggressive this week, in many people's view, is risking a UK walkout. There's the beginnings of a fracturing of opinion on the European side of the negotiation. We don't often hear about that, so that's interesting. And the Sunday Express, in gung-ho form, May sets out roadmap to Brexit success, it says. So lots to talk about. We're going to start, I think, with the Sunday Times front page, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, this is
Aisha.
An absolutely disgraceful and shocking story. It now comes to light that up to 120 workers for Britain's leading charities have been accused of sexual abuse. Priti Patel, former DFID secretary, has said that she fears that there has been a culture of predatory sort of paedophilia going on in the aid sector,
and this she says that public money should just stop.
Well, I think that, for me, that is a stretch too far. I think we shouldn't weaponise this to make a bigger argument about whatever the rights and wrongs and your views are on aid. But, you know, when the charities go into an area, the area is very, very vulnerable. There has been war or famine or a disaster. People are vulnerable, and the idea that people are exploiting vulnerable people for sex is absolutely disgraceful.
We should say it's not just Haiti. There's a story in The Observer which discusses the same sort of thing going on in Chad, and there's lots of other examples, and it's not just Oxfam.
Yeah, and
Save the Children as well.
Just to close this off from my point of view, I mean, I just think the charity sector should hold themselves to a higher standard. And no sector, and it's not good enough for the charity sector to say, look, we didn't talk about it because we were worried it might affect donations. You know, whether you're the Catholic Church, whether you're politics, whether you're a charity, you should not be above scrutiny. We should investigate these without fear or favour.
But that's where you get into a difficult situation where the former International Development Secretary, Priti Patel, when she says, well, in that case, they shouldn't get any money, this is a great political excuse not to fund them.
That's exactly in the charity sector would say, that's why we didn't come clean.
And this is the issue. But this is what happened with Jimmy Savile at the BBC. It's what's happened in the Roman Catholic Church with paedophile. And this idea that protecting the reputation of the organisation, which overall does good in some of these scenarios, that is more important than a child prostitute in Haiti not being exploited. And that's the issue. We have to get to grips with the idea that if you are a predatory paedophile, working for a big aid charity would be a really sensible thing for you to do.
One of the things that happens when you get a big story like this is everybody starts to go in different directions, searching different aspects of sex problems. In this case, in the charity sector, you've got the front page of the Mail on Sunday.
Yeah, and I think it is important.
A sad story,
yes, this is allegations against Brendan Cox, the widower of Jo Cox, of course. Now, look, he denies his allegations. I have no information whether or not these allegations are true or not. But we do have this thing where I think the media a lot of the time pick and choose who they will expose in their idea for allegations, whether true or false, not proven yet, certainly.
For news value.
For news value and for political value. And I really think we need to be very open about the fact that these are now being used, these allegations, whether it's about the President's Club, whether it's about Oxfam, whether it's about this, that these are politicised things. And I do think we need to be very careful about people's anonymity. And I really do think that if you're going to be naming one person as opposed to another person and picking and choosing, well...
Make very clear why you're doing that.
Why you're doing it. Can I just say one thing on that? I mean, I think you have to tread hugely carefully with these things. But sometimes revealing the name of somebody brings forward other victims as well. So there's a very fine
But we've also seen cases with this Westminster so-called sex pest scandal where people have taken their lives, people are having their careers ruined. There are MPs currently who still don't know what the charges are against them.
But also, do also remember the thousands of people that never ever get justice and they never have their voice heard.
We could and it would be interesting, but we must move on. I mentioned the Barnier story, the Michel Barnier story. It's very interesting in the front page of the Sunday Telegraph, Aisha.
Well, it is. I mean, the Sunday Telegraph have leaned hard into Barnier, and they are saying that, you know, he's actually overreached himself in terms of his language.
This is the punishment clause if we don't agree to his deal on the transition.
Yes,
yeah.
and you know, there's lots of briefing and counter-briefing, exactly. And what they're saying is that diplomats from a number of countries are sort of questioning his stance. But again, I mean, you would expect me to say this because I'm on the other side from Julia, but this is what the cut and thrust of negotiations are like. You can't have a Gwyneth Paltrow conscious uncoupling. Sure. I'm afraid, you know, it's a dirty business negotiating.
And they're a lot better at it than us, it would seem, and that's the issue.
Do you accept, however, that in a sense, you know, we pour over every split, every problem on the British government side, every inconsistency. On the other side, we've got major nations who now disagree with each other about the terms of Brexit and stress between the national capitals on the one hand and Barnier's team in Brussels on the other, and we don't very often report this.
Well, the BBC doesn't often report it.
No, they won't talk to us, is partly the problem.
Well, no, but there is a major issue, again, believing everything that anyone at the EU says is the word of God, and everything else is being politicised here. Yeah, there's a major issue, isn't there, in terms of the fact that we've got an organisation, the EU, which is basically happily going to do economic damage to its own member states and its own countrymen.
But we are doing
to punish us.
We're potentially doing economic damage to ourselves.
All I say is
keep
watching next week.
I will.
But
you know I always watch.
Of course.
This is a spread in the Sunday Times by Tim Shipman. Besieged May pressed to put some Brexit meat on the cabinet table. Wonderful last
Leonardo
supper.
turning in his grave.
It's a superb spread. But basically, what is happening, as you currently see, we see speech after speech, we see newspaper column after newspaper column, and basically the Remainers and the Brexiteers in the cabinet and outside the Monks and the Soubries are basically constantly trying to get the Prime Minister's ear. There seems to be a view, it's almost Trumpian, that whoever has spoken to her last gets the official policy.
I think the general view is, you know, we just want some signal from Theresa May about what she wants to do.
Well, she has. The Lancaster speech is very clear.
Come on, that's so not true. I mean, she doesn't know what she wants now. We don't know.
That's the thing. There have been signals, but then she goes back on them.
Excuse me, can I just have a very,
sorry, Andrew, you're here.
a very brief word?
Julia,
I'm really sorry. But certainly according to the Sunday Express and many other papers, we are about to hear what Theresa May thinks. There's going to be a statement coming shortly, and then a series of, I think, 6 big speeches by cabinet ministers laying out exactly what they want from these negotiations. Though interestingly, Mr. Hammond is not among them.
Well, this is the problem. She's had 2 meetings this week with her kind of inner war cabinet, and never has there been a better title for a working group. And the problem is they are still fundamentally split over what kind of Brexit they want.
Well, over Brexit or no Brexit.
You know, whether they want to have a sort of a divergent Brexit, whether they want something which is much more aligned. And, you know, Julia and I would, you know, we're on that. They have still not come to, and we are wasting time on this. We are going to miss our
There'll be no speech from Hammond because he gave a speech in Davos, but I have to say the less we hear from Hammond, the better. I think also for Hammond's career.
He's the Chancellor. He should be allowed to speak.
At the end of this programme, we're going to hear the Spitfires playing, and they've got a big Justice for Grenfell sign on their speaker. A different kind of tower block, but a very worrying story in the Sunday Times, Aisha.
There is. I mean, it looks like we are failing to learn the horrific, tragic lessons of Grenfell, particularly when it comes to design of these very, very tall residential towers. There is a huge building being done, and the worry is it's proposed to be built with only a single staircase providing an escape from some of the highest floors. And Russ Timpson, who's from the Safety Network, said that, you know, we think this is extraordinary that we are in this situation where we're having these very, very tall buildings with one fire escape. And the truth is, you know, we are building up in London. That is a trend.
And you can see from the beautiful photograph behind you, Aisha, London is now full of vast glass towers. And if some of them have only a single staircase to get out, that's terrifying.
But the thing is, this also undermines this whole idea that this is all just an attack on the poor. It's because people are poor in Grenfell Tower that they had this terrible fire safety. Actually, it's across the board, rich or poor. OK,
more stories. Cheating teachers in the Sunday Times.
I think this is fascinating, front page of the Sunday Times. Yes, we all had a lot of talk recently about pupils cheating. Of course, you know, with the advent of the mobile phone, which I don't think we had, and maybe you did, I don't know, in our day, it wasn't an option. You had to write on your hand, but thousands of teachers caught cheating. And I think this says a lot about how we view exams now. Exams used to be the idea that you would have an idea of where someone's standards were, you know, how good someone was at a particular subject. Now the idea is it's a route to something else, and everyone must get A's or A stars. And we no longer see exams as a sort of factual representation of someone's ability, so it's OK to cheat. And I
also
think it's a really different mindset at school.
It is. But also what's interesting is a lot of people get super coached for their exams as well. It's an interesting industry.
We have time for one final story, Aisha. You can choose between ice hockey and
I think we're going to do ice hockey, actually. Let's do ice hockey. So the Winter Olympics are going on, but actually no one really cares about them because it's all about North Korea and South Korea.
Really interesting. The North Koreans are making as nice as the North Koreans ever make,
It's
aren't they?
incredible, their sort of diplomacy and their sort of, you know, they've made all the attention onto them. And Kim Jong-un has sent his wee sister, Little Kim, as I call her.
She's only 30. She's head of propaganda for North Korea.
Do you know what I would
love? I'd like to know more about this person.
I would absolutely love it if she decided to stay in South Korea.
A defect.
I think it's
that would be absolutely amazing.
I think it's
I have to say, we all think it's a bit of a joke and it's all lovely, but at the end of the day, the North Koreans are, you know, a nasty dictator, murderer state, outplaying the diplomacy of South Korea, Japan, China and America.
Yeah.
But that is rather worrying.
Remember, this could be an important first step. The only way to sort of calm down the temperature in North Korea is diplomacy with South Korea. So hopefully this could be sort of, you know, a beginning of a thawing in relations.
It started on the ice hockey.
Well, ping-pong did it in the 70s.
Ping-pong to ice hockey. Thank you both very much indeed. Now then, if they were going to make a soap opera about UKIP leaders, they'd have to show it after the watershed.